Welcome to Humphrey Coliseum, where it's halftime, Steve. Mississippi State taking care of Alcorn State, 44-29 at the halftime. This is a game where the Bulldogs can afford to go through the motions, and for most of the first half, they have kind of gone through the motions. But Abdul Adu is not playing and wearing a walking boot on the ankle that he hurt on the trip out west. Hopefully they have him back Friday for the Dayton game. All right, let's turn to the more immediate topic of interest, Steve. Today, Mississippi State still basking in the afterglow of our Egg Bowl victory. Good news for a couple of Bulldogs. On the offensive line, Elkin Jenkins, lineman of the week. Defensive line, Jeffrey Simmons, a much overdue and long-awaited defensive lineman of the week. Just kind of caps the weekend. Yes, Nick Fitzgerald had no chance of offensive player of the week given the interesting events in College Station, but just days after the fact, a well-rounded victory from all aspects of the Bulldogs to finish off the regular season.
It was, David, and he needed that one sack to put him over the hump to get selected.
His only sack of the season so far, by the way.
Absolutely. I think you kind of forecasted that, Dave, last week a couple times, and Jeff does perform well. Really, that whole defensive front played exceptionally well. You could have picked any number of players. It just seemed like State really dominated line of scrimmage on both sides. Elton Jenkins, one of the top center prospects in this draft. We expect him to be drafted pretty high as centers go. But, some just due rewards for these Bulldogs.
And we can't resist reminding one more time, they held the arch rivals to 0-0 touchdowns. Well, okay, they got to the end zone once, and it was taken away, which was kind of a delicious irony given who was involved. And Ole Miss did hit a pass that was taken away at the goal line as well. Murray Smitherman just did what the Bulldog defense has done all year. I've just about made up my mind, Steve. I know you saw the 81 defense as a young guy. You saw the 99 defense more better age. I'm about ready to declare this the best Bulldog defense all around that I've seen, certainly on the scoring front.
Well, I think the only issue where I would give the 99 group is more turnovers.
They were a little more fun to watch.
They were a little more colorful at times. But, yeah, this group, Bob Sheep's done a great job with them, and you've got some NFL players to pull from here. But, yeah, arguably one of the best defenses of all time at Mississippi State. And, David, you've watched a lot more Mississippi State football, and some of it had been great. So you know a great Bulldog defense when you see one. So I'll kind of defer to your judgment here. And,
of course, the news today that Coach Bob Shoop has been made a finalist for the Broyles Award, very deservingly so. I mean, the guy he stepped in. Yes, he inherited a loaded defense, but the mark of a great coach is to make a very good unit better, and he made them not just better, he made them great as well. Offensively, a great way to finish the season. Maybe a little bit of a slow start there for the game, but the Bulldogs they stuck to their game plan. Joe Moorhead, you saw his offense really rounding into shape the last 4 games of the season. And for those who say that Nick Fitzgerald can't pass, in his last 5 games, he completed 61% of his passes, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Once this offense began clicking, you saw what they could do with this team and quite hopefully a look at the future under Moorhead's management.
You would hope so, David, and that's the thing, too. Nick Fitzgerald has that dreadful night in Baton Rouge, throwing the 4 interceptions, and really a ball game Mississippi State had a really good chance to win. Offensively, you just couldn't get out of your own way. But since that game, Nick Fitzgerald has responded and been the quarterback many of us hope to see this year.
And one more fallout from the Egg Bowl. Some rulings come down today from the SEC office where in a lot of words, they almost said, sorry, we messed up in a lot of aspects. And I know video shows a lot of things that you can't catch in real time, and it's good to have a chance to review it and really take care of some things that will have no bearing on Mississippi State's bowl game. And that's probably the way it should have washed out. Should those things happen? No, but tempers flare in a rivalry game, as we saw in a lot of games this past weekend outside the boundaries of the South. So nobody was hurt, no permanent damage done. And the schools will get together and talk about things, but it will never take away the spice from this rivalry, nor should it.
Well, David, and here's the bottom line, too, is Mississippi State responsible for their actions. That's one of the things on social media. All Miss fans say, well, they started it, and State fans say, well, they started like a bunch of kids. The bottom line is you can't be baited into that. State's got a lot more to play for. But that's going to happen sometimes when you have guys out there in a highly competitive situation, not just mention a rivalry game. But the bottom line is nobody's going to sit for the bowl game. That was the biggest concern. That was the immediate concern once the game was over, is do we lose these guys for the bowl game? And to be fair, the league got it right today. They got it wrong on the field. They got it wrong in the replay, but they got it right today. Jonathan Abram, A.J. Brown, Jamal Peters, Matt Corral should have all been ejected. They weren't. They got one of the 4 right, but Cam Dantzler, C.J. Moore should not have been, so they get it right. And it's really unfortunate, too, for a guy like C.J. Moore gets ejected from his final college game when he's done nothing wrong, and that's really unfortunate. And so the league does kind of come out today, and I think because of the fact they erred on the field and with the replay, they elected not to issue any additional punishment, probably the right decision.
Because you're set up with the interesting idea of how can you be penalized for a play that never happened officially. So, all right. And by the way, if you're really going to be upset with officials, there's a bunch down in Baton Rouge that have a lot of reason to be unhappy at this moment. Now, and that game, Bulldog fans were following very closely all through the 7 overtimes because it will impact on how Mississippi State's postseason situation shapes up. Tomorrow night, we get the next to last edition, in fact, of the College Football Playoff rankings. Every Bulldog is out there hoping that LSU at least mimics their Associated Press ranking this week, tied for number 12, stay in that group. And typically the football rankings have given the SEC scheduling more merit and ranked them a spot or two higher than the media polling has done. That'd be a good thing because, yes, right now you don't say you're comfortable at LSU making the New Year's Six games along with Alabama, Georgia, and probably Florida, but they're still in the picture, and then that sets up the ripple effect for the postseason.
Yeah, and State still has a chance to get to the Outback Bowl. Had LSU won that game, it's a pretty cut and dry deal. It's not so cut and dry now, so we're kind of sweating it out, but nothing's ever easy for Mississippi State fans. We're accustomed to this. But the bottom line is State's going to get a great ball game. Probably worst case is Music City, which is a great destination for us. Best case would be an Outback, would be a historic bowl game for if we've never been there. And so now we wait and see what happens tomorrow night. And you got to feel like if LSU is in the top 12 tomorrow, they'll stay there because these championship games will have some shuffling that shouldn't affect the Tigers.
And, of course, State fans could also keep an eye on the championship games of various conferences this weekend for how some of the wins and losses could also affect into that of helping teams like Florida and LSU either hold their position or move up, as well as taking shape for the college playoffs, whereas, obviously, if Georgia somehow pulls it off, you got an excellent chance of getting 2 teams into the playoff as well, and that also affecting the New Year's Six. You mentioned the Outback is still in the picture. By the way, we've been checking already on where the official team hotel is, January 1st game down there, and looking at Nashville as well, great fan base, and checking on all sorts of things, kind of setting the stage here. But we'll know that Friday afternoon. I think about 4:30 is when the word starts getting out to the schools, and then it becomes official sometime after 5 o'clock once the playoff situation is set. So something to keep track in there to keep a little entertainment going in this weekend. All right, Steve, quickly, some recruiting fallout from the Egg Bowl.
Well, we feel pretty good about where Mississippi State stands with a lot of prospects. I mean, there's not a lot of in-state guys left to commit for 2019, but State is certainly the trendy school right now in the Magnolia State for 2020. State's already off to a good start there. Charles Cross is an offensive lineman from Laurel High School, took an official visit to USC. That coaching situation, probably good for another year, but probably not a good situation for a Magnolia State boy looking across the country. We think he's going to end up in State when it's all said and done. And then Kelly Bryant, that's the situation. Everybody's continuing to monitor. He's still got some other visits to take. Mississippi State is very much in the mix with him. In-home visits now underway. State's been in. Missouri's been in. It's going to be a bit of a race, a sprint to the finish here. He's going to make a decision December 4th, and I understand he's not going to take any more visits after that and shut the whole thing down. So State's had their visit. They've had an in-home visit. They'll go in and have another one before he decides, and then we'll see what happens.
Remind us of the signing date for this December period, as well as the number of players that you think right now will be the maximum Joe Moorhead signs in his first true recruiting class.
Well, he could sign 25. I don't know if you've got a full 25 available when fall camp starts, but there's probably a signing place or two in there. State currently with 21 commitments, but still chasing some names out there. December 19th is a big date. That'll be a 3-day signing period, and then you'll have the traditional signing day in February. But we expect State to finish somewhere in the top 25 and begin to start stacking classes from here. But I feel good about where State stands right now. Now it's about finishing, kind of cleaning up the green and putting a good class together.
And speaking of finishing, we're going to go outside and watch Coach Ben Howland's team, also still ranked in the AP Top 25, finish off tonight's win against Alcorn State. They play at Dayton this Friday evening. Bulldog basketball and Lady Bulldog basketball getting back into full speed here. Check your schedules because with the finals week coming up, there's the dead period. And keep in mind, fans, too, there's the game in Jackson later in December as well. So a lot of basketball ahead, but we have football to take care of this weekend. Be watching on Sunday for the bowl announcements. And by the way, Mississippi State has already made available to Bulldog Club members and others. You can start pre-ordering your bowl tickets, and that will be factored in, obviously, by your priorities and all sorts of things involved in that. And just get a jump on the crowd, help support the program as well, and just make your plans for a holiday with Joe Moorhead's first Bulldog team and get an idea of what the second, third, fourth, and fifth are going to look like as this program takes shape. So for our crew here at Gene's Page 24/7, for Steve Robertson here at Humphrey Coliseum, this is David Murray.